Here's the thing nobody tells you when you start eating better and moving more. The fat that's actually killing you doesn't announce when it leaves. You won't wake up one morning and see a flatter stomach. You won't step on the scale and watch the number drop in a satisfying straight line. But something will shift. Your hunger will start to quiet down. Your energy will stop yo-yoing. That heavy, tight feeling around your midsection, it starts to loosen. Quietly. Invisibly. Weeks before the mirror shows you anything. That fat is visceral fat. It lives deep inside your abdominal cavity, tucked around your liver, your intestines, your pancreas. You cannot pinch it. You cannot see it. But it is the fat your doctor loses sleep over. Because it doesn't just sit there. It acts like a rogue organ, flooding your bloodstream with inflammatory signals, interfering with your insulin, and slowly turning your metabolism against you. The good news? When it starts to let go, your entire internal environment changes. And if you know what to look for, you'll catch the early signs long before your waistline catches up. Here's what actually happens, broken down by timeline. The first 24 to 48 hours. Nothing visible happens, but everything invisible does. The moment you cut back on liquid sugar, stop eating after dinner, or get one real night of sleep, your insulin levels start to drop. And insulin is the reason visceral fat gets to stay in the first place. High insulin tells your fat cells, hold everything. Don't release a thing, keep storing. When insulin drops, that lock loosens. Your nervous system starts releasing signals, specifically norepinephrine, that tap fat cells and say, we need fuel.
Visceral fat is first in line to respond because it's more metabolically active than subcutaneous fat. It has a higher density of the receptors that respond to those fat-releasing signals. In real life, this phase doesn't feel triumphant. It feels irritating. You're hungry. You're a little cranky. Your body is switching fuel sources, and it's not quiet about it. But here's what that irritation actually means. The process has started. Discomfort in the first 48 hours is often your body doing exactly what you asked it to do. Don't quit when it feels hard. That friction is the signal. Okay, days 3 to 7. This is when your liver becomes the main character. Visceral fat sits right next to the portal vein, the blood vessel that drains directly into your liver. When visceral fat starts breaking down, it releases free fatty acids straight into that express lane. Your liver gets flooded first. Research on visceral fat and metabolic disease consistently shows this pathway as the reason visceral fat is so damaging. But it's also why your liver is the first organ to benefit when visceral fat starts shrinking. Think of your liver like a processing plant running triple shifts. For years, visceral fat has been dumping excess load onto it nonstop. As that load starts to ease, the plant can finally catch up. It begins clearing fat more efficiently. Inflammation starts to come down. You won't see any of this, but you may feel it. Meals start sitting better. That sluggish, heavy feeling after eating starts to ease. Your afternoon energy doesn't drop off a cliff. Cravings get slightly less aggressive. These aren't random. They're early receipts that your internal environment is shifting. Track the quiet wins, not just the scale. Weeks 2 and 3, your hormones start re-entering the chat. Visceral fat doesn't just store energy. It produces and releases hormones and inflammatory cytokines, chemical messengers that interfere with how your body reads its own signals. One of the most important ones is adiponectin. When visceral fat is high, adiponectin is low. And low adiponectin means worse insulin sensitivity, slower fat burning, and more hunger chaos. As visceral fat shrinks, adiponectin levels begin to rise. Insulin sensitivity improves. And here's where something remarkable happens in daily life. Your appetite starts to feel manageable again. Not because of willpower, because your hormones are actually working. People who've pushed through the first 2 weeks often describe this phase the same way. I'm not obsessing over food anymore. I can eat a meal and actually feel full. I stopped thinking about snacks every hour. That's not discipline kicking in. That's your signaling chemistry starting to normalize. And when your internal signals are working, the effort required to stay consistent drops significantly.
Now the changes start to show up somewhere outside a blood panel. Visceral fat reduction shows up in your shape before it shows up on a scale. Because as deep abdominal fat decreases, your midsection changes in circumference before your total body weight shifts much. Multiple systematic reviews confirm this, including research in the British Journal of Sports Medicine, finding that a sustained weekly calorie deficit produces measurable visceral fat reduction, and that exercise alone can contribute to this even when the scale doesn't move. Your waistband starts telling the truth before your weight does. Pants that were tight across the belly feel different. You feel less compressed sitting down. The bloating that lived with you permanently starts to come and go instead of just stay. This is not fat loss mythology. This is visceral fat behaving exactly the way the research says it does, shrinking first in the places it's most dangerous, and showing up as shape change before scale change.
Month 2 and beyond, this is where letting go becomes protection. 2-year dietary intervention studies show that sustained caloric reduction reduces visceral and hepatic fat meaningfully, and that the specific diet style matters far less than adherence and a real consistent energy deficit. Intermittent energy restriction, time-restricted eating, and continuous caloric deficits all reduce visceral fat when applied consistently. The long-term picture is where the real stakes are. Improved insulin sensitivity, less inflammatory signaling, a liver that's no longer buried under excess fat, better cardiovascular markers, a metabolism that switches between fuel sources without panicking. And something you probably didn't expect, your relationship with food changes. When your hormones are working properly, cravings are smaller, energy is steadier. The constant background noise of appetite quiets down. One honest note, as fat tissue breaks down, it can release some stored compounds back into circulation. Research on persistent organic pollutants shows that rapid weight loss can temporarily raise these levels, which is one more reason why slow, steady progress beats crash diets. Steady progress is safer, and it lasts. So, what this actually means for you? Visceral fat doesn't leave dramatically. It leaves through consistency. A daily walk, a real calorie deficit, better sleep, less liquid sugar, fewer ultra-processed snacks that spike insulin and tell your fat cells to stay put. And it leaves in a specific order. Your internal chemistry shifts first, then your energy, then your appetite, then your shape, then your labs. The mirror is the last one to get the memo. But by the time it does, your body has already been changing for weeks. So if you felt any of those early shifts, appetite getting quieter, energy getting steadier, less bloat after meals, drop a comment below and tell me which one hit you first. And if you want to know exactly what habits accelerate visceral fat loss without tanking your metabolism, that's the next video. Hit like, subscribe, and share this with one person who's been wondering why the scale isn't moving even when they're doing the work. The answer is probably happening, just not where they're looking.